Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. Your host here, Matt Zahabu, you're buzzing as always. Guys, it's a lovely morning in Toronto. My guest is halfway across the world, and he is coming in hot for round two. Also has the best name on the planet. I think we've had like 3 Matts on in the last 2 weeks, which is pretty wild to see. But today we have Matthew Graham coming back for round two today, managing partner of Ryze Labs, and one of the key drivers of the long-term strategic vision and mission of the firm. He founded Ryze back in 2015, initially as a sell-side tech investment banking platform with a focus on representing international tech companies for strategic partnership and investment in emerging markets. He's been an OG in the space since 2013 and has supported many great entrepreneurs and companies through good and bad times. Present day, and since the last time we spoke, the ethos and perhaps strategy of Ryze has changed a little, and you guys are going pretty all in, maybe not all in, but very concentrated on the intersection of AI and crypto, leveraging blockchain tech to enhance AI-driven apps through its AI Combinator Fund. Love the name too. Can't wait to get into this. Maddie, welcome back to the show, my friend. How you doing? Great to have you on.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for having us today.
Pumped to have you on here, Maddie. I think it's been 2 or 3 years, and a lot's changed since then. The last time I had you on, I don't even think AI was like, I don't want to say it wasn't a thing. Of course it was a thing, but ChatGPT was just getting kicked off, and that was the first big consumer app. Here we're at present day. We have AI absolutely everywhere. Everyone says it's going to take over the world, and we can get into that later. But that aside, before we get into everything, what's your 2 cents on the overall market right now? You're in the VC space, you are in the incubation space, you have a great pulse on what the market is doing. How's the overall market looking present day at the end of May, early June 2025?
Sure. It does seem like it's heating up a little bit. I think that last year overall was very obviously a risk-on year from start to finish. This year, there's a lot more volatility and it's more situational, but it does seem more positive in terms of maybe the second half of the year. The first half of the year, I think it was a little bit overshadowed by the constant chaos of the new administration, but it does seem like it's in a much better state than at the beginning of the year with all the constant chaos around tariffs and this, that, and the other new policies.
Yeah. Also the rug pulls. We were literally full steam ahead on the momentum train, and then the Trump launch sort of, hindered things a fair amount. And then you had the Melania launch, and right when the Melania launch happened, I went back and looked at my trading notes, and I was like, this is not good. But of course I didn't sell everything right away there, even though, again, hindsight's 2020. And then you had the Libra launch with Milei and Hayden and anyways, crazy nonsense. Hopefully we are looking good. And yes, we do still have a little bit of macro stuff. And again, before we take a deep dive into Ryze and into what you guys are moving and grooving on, are there any areas of crypto outside of what you guys are doing right now that really, really excite you, that you got to have your eye on present day?
Well, I think that the stablecoin legislation that's in the works is quite interesting. I think that being able to further legitimize that aspect of our industry, which is maybe a little bit less sexy in some respects than meme coin of the day or DeFi or AI, etc. on the surface, but beneath that beyond that superficial lens, that's the aspect of our technology that has had the best product market fit in basically the history of our industry. So I think it's quite bullish to have further legitimization there, as long as there's not any kind of regulatory capture, which I do remain a little bit wary about.
Keep going on that. Give me a deeper dive. If it does go the wrong way, not the right way, are we in trouble? What's your sort of long tail thesis here regarding stablecoins?
Well, I think a couple things. First of all, I do think that it's a market that tends towards oligopolistic market, probably not a winner-take-all market, but it does tend towards a market with a small number of winners and then probably a long tail. So that's kind of to begin with, but I think there's always a danger when you have these larger companies that are heavily involved in the legislative process that they'll kind of try to tip the scales a little bit. And so we're always a little bit wary about regulatory capture. So that's a little bit of a concern. But overall, I think it's quite positive, quite bullish to have the additional legitimization.
Maddie, great little rip on stablecoins there. Argentina, which is a country that is close to my heart, as I was there in Q4, and that is where I met my lovely girlfriend. I absolutely love Argentina. Incredible place for a multitude of reasons, which we can get into later. But it was super cool. And for the first time in my life, I actually really got to see what it was like where a country actually gives a shit about stablecoins and crypto in everyday use. You can go exchange money in Argentina. You literally just walk up, you give them Tether, and they will give you dollars, or sorry, excuse me, not dollars, Argentinian pesos. But a lot of Argentinians, when they get paid, a lot of them use Lemon Cash or Binance app or whatever the case may be, but they get paid and literally they convert their Argentinian pesos, their ARS, to Tether right away and hold the Tether. So it's really cool to see that. But let's keep buzzing on the topic of stablecoins and the importance of emerging markets. We already went over a little bit of the reg. We went over how it currently still has the best PMF in all of crypto. But let's talk about emerging markets. Why are stablecoins so powerful for emerging markets, and why are you, the team, still so bullish on them?
Sure. So, I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head in terms of the way stable coins are used. It can be quite different and really much more existential in emerging markets, such as Argentina. I mean, in places like the United States, it might be like DeFi trading pairs, right? But if you're talking about the way that it's going to be most woven into the fabric of people's everyday lives in in ways that are most important, you're definitely going to be looking at emerging economies. And that's just such a vivid and true example. I've heard that from many people as well, even similar things from many people as well, even though I haven't seen with my own eyes. I think they use DAI a lot also in
Yeah.
Argentina.
Yeah.
And notably, they use USDT rather than USDC. There is, I do think it's worth noting that there is a strong preference for Tether in most of the non-Western world for probably many reasons. So, but the point is that it is really much more important. One of the big use cases is hyperinflation, a hedge against hyperinflation. That's probably the main reason why they're using it in Argentina, right? And notably, my understanding is that if you're a regular guy or regular gal and you have like a normal bank account in Argentina, it's basically impossible to be able to have the United States dollar window as part of that banking account that you have,
Bingo.
which is why people go to these
Yep.
alternate mechanisms to be able to have something that's pegged to the United States dollar, which again is existential for them. It's not like, oh, DeFi trading pair. This is about being able to live for them, honestly, right? Because the inflation rate is what it. I mean, I don't know offhand, but are we talking like in the 50s or something like that? I mean, it's not four, right? So this is existential for people to be able to preserve some modicum of wealth. And we're talking about like literally can they eat for some people because the economy has inflation to that extent. So hyperinflation, of course, is one of the hedge against hyperinflation, of course, is one of the big use cases. Notably, people, again, to your point, use stable coins typically for that rather than Bitcoin. So we've always talked about Bitcoin as an inflation hedge, but empirically in the societies, in the places where hyperinflation is the highest, if we observe the behavior, it's almost always that they're using stable coins to protect against it. And then we're really looking at all kinds of different use cases all around the world, transacting near borders of various geographies. If you go to a lot of different places, 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers each side of the border, they'll settle in stables, especially in different types of gray market economies. There's a lot of really interesting use cases. Frankly, a lot of things related to wartime economies and geographies and peoples. Unfortunately, the more strife and the more upheaval and the more marginalized peoples, the more important these types of technologies tend to be. That's the
Yeah.
truth of it. Just like in the United States, the people who really, really need these technologies tend to be marginalized economies, or excuse me, marginalized peoples, such as sex workers that can't get bank accounts and things like that. So there's really a whole myriad of fascinating use cases beyond in the United States, beyond, in San Francisco with like DeFi trading pairs.
Yeah, no, well said there.
Yeah.
On stablecoins as a whole, last point on stablecoins, and then we'll move on to AI. But Circle, I think more news just came out this morning. They're now upping their IPO price from 5 to 6 billion, I believe, which is sort of wild. Do you see a world where Tether somehow loses its market dominance? Obviously, the crypto news team is friends with Paolo and the USDT slash Tether slash Bitfinex team. They've done incredible work. Literally one of the most valuable companies, and I believe the most valuable employee to revenue ratio company in the whole world. Wild. And again, also like the 18th largest holder of T-bills. Like they
Yep.
literally have more T-bills than 99% of countries in the world too. Insane stuff. But do you see a world where Circle can snag more of the stablecoin mind share and actual use
I
from
don't.
Tether? Oh,
I don't.
no, not happening.
I think Circle remains a mostly United States centric story. I understand that
Yeah.
they can do things with Coinbase and with Base and things like that. But the fact of the matter is that Tether has the brand recognition abroad in many of these places, like Argentina, to your point, but also throughout most of Asia, it's overwhelmingly Tether instead of USDC. And also, I think not just the brand recognition, but also it's culturally more comfortable for people than USDC, which is viewed, right or wrong, as very American and kind of like not affiliate, associated with the United States government. Just talking about the market perception. It's an American government affiliated, type product is kind of the perception in the market. And so it's not something that's super comfortable for people culturally throughout much of Asia. And Tether is and has the brand recognition. I mean, if you're in the gray market economy, like why would you want USDC? That's like the Fed coin. Is I'm trying to find a delicate, polite way to say it, but that's kind of the perception, right? Like, why do you want the Fed coin? If you're like
No, 100%.
if you're Chinese or if you're Russian or even if you're from Vietnam or Thailand, like you've got Tether, which has a great reputation, has been around for years and years and got its start as kind of a little bit gray market coded, right? In some ways. So that's like super culturally comfortable for people. If the alternative is like the hello fellow kids, USDC Fed coin, like why would you want that? That's not something that is appealing to people in much of the world, actually. So I think it's going to be difficult, even though I'm very fond of Mr. Allaire. I'll tell you why, because he is one. In fact, I'm not sure I can think of any other one except possibly the twins, the Winklevoss twins, if you count them with social networking. But Mr. Allaire, Jeremy, is the only person I can think of who was enormously successful in the internet age and then in crypto as well. He's a little bit older, right? So if I recall correctly, he sold Macromedia. He was the guy that started Macromedia, which
Yeah.
pioneered the Flash technology and all
Yeah.
kinds of different things. So for him to be phenomenally successful in the internet age and the crypto age as well, I think really says volumes about his entrepreneurial talent. So I'm really quite fond of the guy, but I think it's going to be very, very tough for USDC to compete internationally. I think that has been the case and will continue to be the case.
Yeah, well said. You, you,
Yeah.
you and I are in the same boat there. Maddie, you're on a roll. Quick shout out to our sponsor of the show, Prime XPT. When we get back, we are going to take a deep dive into AI and why Ryze Labs is not going all in, but putting their chips towards the AI part of the poker table. Huge shout out to Prime XPT, longtime friends and longtime sponsors of the CryptoNews.com podcast, and of course, CryptoNews.com. We love these guys as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. Doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, You can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. PromXBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News Pod. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that's CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that's CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Okay, Maddie, it's AI time.
Sure.
Let's jump into it. You and the team, big, huge thesis in regards to how AI will fundamentally involve economic actions and really change everything. Unfortunately, we do not have a Joe Rogan 3-hour time slot here, because I know you and I could rib on this for 3 hours straight.
Yeah,
But
we
let's
probably
start off
could. Yeah.
Hondo P. Let's start off with the overall sort of macro thesis, and then we'll distill it, go down to the micro, and talk about some specific projects as well that you and the team are invested in. But start with the macro thesis of how AI is really just going to eat a little bit of everything and how it ties into crypto as well.
Sure. So obviously we all know that AI has gone hockey stick, whether it's generative AI or all kinds of different AI, on the back of a couple different key innovations over the last few years. After basically being a dead water for a decade or two, people wouldn't even go, people thought it was like a career killer. But then they had a couple key innovations, right? And it's gone hockey stick, meaning it's gone vertical. It's more than far long since now gone up into the skies, right? So we think that we absolutely think that over any kind of long-term time horizon, this is going to continue, in fact, probably dramatically accelerate. And it is, we agree with the consensus view that it's going to permeate throughout many aspects of our lives. Whether, this, that, AGI or the other, I think that's almost besides the point to me. This is going to be a game changer for society in many, many ways. What I find interesting, though, is the way in which it really does feel like it has the potential to mesh well and play well with crypto. These are digital technologies, first and foremost, and they are clearly going to be interacting with each other in a myriad of different ways, replicating, having all kinds of interactions and transactions, many of which will exchange economic value. And if you're talking about artificially intelligent actors that need to be interacting and transacting and exchanging value all the time, well, they're not going to be using paper money. They're not going to be using fiat probably at all. These aren't going to be going through banks. And I think it's probably pretty
Bingo.
unlikely, even though Stripe is, again, a fantastic business, but I think it's probably pretty unlikely that the likes of Stripe or PayPal will be the go-to either. These are going to be interacting at the speed of light all around the world all the time. And I think that very very naturally is a crypto rail story. So we think this is potentially the third big PMF in crypto's journey. The first two, I guess, would be stablecoins, and probably gambling is the second, to be honest, right? But I think there's a high likelihood that this is number three. And so we're enormously bullish on it. And also, frankly, it's extremely fascinating. So it gives me such great pleasure to get up every day and be working on thinking about and what the intersection of these two industries, these two fields might be like, and talking to some of the best and brightest thinkers that are working on it and learning all about their visions, and to be able to have the opportunity to invest in some of them. So we are absolutely going big on the intersection of AI and crypto, and enormously bullish for sure.
Maddie, AI companions, I want to say not that FOM from people's minds up until even like a month ago when that Zuckerberg interview went viral. I think it might have even been Theo Vaughn, when Zuck was like, the average American craves, wants, and needs 15 super close friends, and the average has 3. We're going to find that. Again, it's sometimes it's good.
A little bit of a weird interview, to be honest, right? I saw a couple, I didn't see the whole thing, but I saw clips. Even though there's probably a lot of truth in there, he somehow made it very uncomfortable, didn't he?
That's
Like
Zuck. The guy's just
it didn't
it's
feel
just a
like a
weird dude.
fun vision for the
Yeah,
future.
exactly. He's
But
just a weird dude.
there's definitely a lot of truth in there too. And I absolutely do think that there's kind of like a loneliness epidemic all around the world that we're
Yeah.
seeing manifested in various ways. There's a craving. Look, he made it a little weird, but there's a real craving for emotional connectivity that people have. It's clear that there's a lack of that for many people in many situations all around the world. We see that with elderly people. We see that not just in Japan, but now some other countries where people have, even young people, I mean, have kind of like opted out of the workforce and they're just staying home and playing video games all day. We see that with many people that work from home all day or are always traveling or things like that. I think with men tend to actually be especially susceptible to this kind of lack of emotional connections. There's always a lot of jokes or comments or whatever about how men other than their wives or girlfriends they don't really and people from work they don't really have like we talk about sports with each other but beyond that we don't really tend to have like a lot of emotional companions or whatever that are people, right? So Zuck being Zuck, he like made it super weird, but I think there is a lot of truth to what he said about how one of the biggest problems actually in the world today is that people have a lack of emotional connections because of the way modern society is set up, because of the way we're structured. I absolutely think that's true, even though Zuck being Zuck, he somehow found a way to make it weird. And not fun sounding for his vision of how to fix it.
100%.
But we see this from science fiction, right? We see how, Blade Runner, I guess the new one, right, had joy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And look, I think there are people that are working on a couple disparate visions that you could almost put into like two camps. And one is more AI companions, and two is more AIs that are very functional and help you get things done. Even like the Rabbit R1, I think it's called, is more in the latter camp. Personally, I think that especially in kind of an attention economy, what's most interesting is the combination of the two. If you had an AI, the thing about this new generation of AIs is through repeated interactions with them, it can really feel like they absolutely know you in the way that someone who has you've known for many years knows you because of the way they process information. It can be
It's
actually
wild.
quite a powerful experience. So what is most interesting and this goes to Zuck's points again. I do think that there's truth in what he said. What's most interesting to me is being able to have AIs that while they are their companion and know them super well, they're leveraging how well they know you as a way to help you get stuff done in the digital world. And so that's one of the reasons why we recently invested in Amico and also EdgeX, that two projects that are working at the intersection of those two visions, which is really where I think the most interesting action is.
Tell me about Amico. You can't just drop it and not plug it at all, Matty.
Oh
Come
yes,
on
sure,
now.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I
Tell
actually
us.
have one right here. It's a little bit bigger than maybe 50% bigger than an AirPod case. Amico, again, at the highest level, enables and extends AI technology to be able to do those two things simultaneously, be your friend and help you get stuff done in the digital world. But you can imagine that all these AI agents, they're proliferating, right? They're all over the place and they all have these specific functions and capabilities. So the first and foremost thing that Amico does is it brings all these AI agents together as if they were an orchestra. That's why we refer to their technology as an orchestration layer. So the AI agents, whether it's Amico's native AI agents or third-party open source AI agents, they're in the orchestra, and the Amico technology is kind of the conductor of all these AI agents. That's the first and
Hmm.
foremost thing that it does. The reason that's important is because we're already talking about a world of AI agents, even in crypto, where it's like, I mean, there are thousands, tens of thousands of these, right? So we don't want to have tens of thousands of apps, or how are we even going to access these or use these together, right? So what Amico does is, for example, if I were using the Amico hardware device and I were interacting with it by voice and asking a question or wanting it to get something done, the first thing it does, have you ever seen, like, in the movies back 50 years ago or whenever it was, when they have like a telephone relay
Oh yeah.
center and they have the girl and the girls are like blah, 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 blah. So Amico does that for AI agents. So you say you want something done or ask a question, and the Amico technology is routing it to the correct AI agent behind the scenes. You don't even know, you don't even know anything about it, but it's routing it to the correct hyper specific AI agent best for this situation. It gets that information, it gets the result, the output, and then it sends it back through a common look and feel, and then communicates the answer or the result to you. So the TLDR is, you don't need to know about all these tens of thousands of different AI agents. That's now all behind the scenes. And there's a common look and feel, which with the Amico flagship hardware, which is coming out in July, the common look and feel is this character-based AI agent, which is a delightful personality with a rich backstory called Eliza. And so it all runs on Eliza. It runs all Eliza OS, but also any open source AI agents, and comes with an app as well. But basically, first and foremost, it's the conductor for AI agents, organizes them, common look and feel, things like that. And then number two is that the Amico technology allows for these to exist on a hardware device that you can conveniently have with you all the time on the go, whatever it is. The first one is called the Kick. This is the Amico Kick, and there's also an Amico Brain, which is a larger, more powerful device that is intended to sit on your workspace or on your living room or whatever throughout the day. We think it's pretty cool, and we think it's pretty compelling because we do think that there's going to be a huge need to keep all these AI agents organized. Like, my mother is not going to learn 10,000 different AI agents. This is something that she can use very
Yeah.
conveniently because it's just like talking to a person. She doesn't
Yeah,
need to
they
know
get that. Yeah.
what these things are, right? So this is something that, like, a normal person could use, but also that a power user can use, especially because it comes with an app. And we also think it's quite interesting because we share the OpenAI hardware vision,
Yeah.
which is that AI is such a powerful technology that it'll manifest itself in two ways. First of all, it'll be embedded throughout a wide variety of different software and other technologies. Everyone's going to add it to their existing stack. But then also that it's so compelling as to necessitate, or as to have most people want to have, a third device, meaning laptop and desktop as the first device, your phone as a second device, and then some kind of ultra portable AI centric device as a third device. We share that open AI view that AI is so important and transforming that people will want to have that third device. So we think that's pretty cool and pretty compelling. That's one of the investments that we're making, and we can't wait to make more.
That's awesome. Maddie, what an episode. Appreciate you coming on as always. And you and I are in a pretty similar camp here. I mean, stablecoins, so much room to grow. Also, still probably the best PMF along with centralized exchanges for all of crypto. And AI, I mean, none of us really knows what's going to happen over the next couple of years. Shit could go parabolic super quick, but I do agree. I think there will be some interesting, weird AI devices to pop off over the next couple of years. And guys, that will be out in July if I'm right there. So you ready for that? Maddie, as always, really appreciate you coming on. Before we let you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you personally, and of course, Ryze Labs online and on socials?
Sure, I'm on Twitter is one of the best places to find me. On Twitter, I'm Matty Ryze, Mattyryze. And for my Twitter account, there's a link to our Ryze Labs company account as well.
What an epi. Maddie, appreciate you coming on. Guys, if you enjoyed this one, I hope you did. Please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Huge shout out to Maddie and his team for making this happen as well. Again, he is the managing partner at Ryze Labs and was dropping heat today on stablecoin legislation, the future of AI companions, AI agents in crypto, the convergence of AI and crypto, you name it. Huge shout out again to Maddie and the team for making this happen. And please do subscribe, hammer that like button for us. And my team, love you guys. Thank you as always. And back to the listeners, keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.